You're listening to the Build, Buy, Sell Agency Podcast, and this episode is part of our Agency Leader Series. My name is Shane Perkins, and I'm best known for leading acquisitions, deal making, and financing for Unite Digital, a unique and growing agency network specifically positioned to serve mid-market clients across the U.S. And I'm talking to mid-size agency owners across the marketing and advertising spectrum to uncover their top mind shifts, lessons learned, and insights that help them grow and manage their agency, as well as give you a chance to learn what partner and deal opportunities they are looking for right now that you can reach out about to explore possibilities to work together. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Build, Buy, Sell Agency Podcast. My guest today is Adam Kleinberg. He is a partner and CEO at Traction in San Francisco, California. Great to have you on, Adam.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Adam, I love letting our listeners start off with hearing about a big transformation you had within your agency that really helped you take it to the next level. So I'd love for you to kick it off and start with a mind shift. You had a mind shift that you shared with me that helped your mid-size agency win business that large agencies were winning, that you originally weren't. So tell me more about that.
Well, we started off as an agency. We always like to talk about, our DNA being blind fury. When we started the agency 18 years ago, we were kind of mid-level creatives at an agency. When we started business, like we would just take whatever work we could find, do it, be happy about it. We were running a business, making a living. It sounded great. And, at that time, we also used to kind of work as hired guns with bigger agencies. They'd bring us in as kind of a crack creative team. And something started to happen where we got asked to help some of these larger agencies do pitches and do them for really great brands. So we were suddenly participating in the strategy and the creative development that these agencies were bringing in to pitch these really impressive companies. And we said to ourselves, wait a minute, if these guys can use our creative and our strategy to pitch those clients, why can't we do that? And that was a major confidence boost that really allowed us to kind of say, okay, this could be a real agency, not just like a small agency of people making a living. This could be a great agency.
So what size were you when you were that small agency, and then when that mind shift hit, and where did it go from there?
We were probably about 15 people, maybe 12 at that point. But soon thereafter, we wound up getting invited into a pitch for a major brand, and we won. And it was actually the same brand 2 years before we had helped another agency do a pitch for. And that client remains with us today. And it's one of the greatest brands in the world. So for us, like just that awakening of, hey, it's we're able to do this, was kind of this early on confidence boost in the arc of the agency. And I think there was just another, link in the chain along the way where we went from an agency that knew how to build cool stuff to an agency who knew how to use cool stuff to solve business problems for clients. And really understanding how the work that you do and how you do it delivers business outcomes for clients is where we, like that to me is next level in terms of being able to really compete and provide value. And today, agency landscape, if you don't genuinely provide value to your clients, you're not going to be around. Like just collecting a paycheck and, the age of the $1 million microsite is behind us, for us, those were a couple of key turning points along the way. Today, we're like, we're still a boutique, small to mid-size. We're about 50, 60 people. We have an office in our office in San Francisco. Traction is has been recognized by a number of publications, from Ad Age to Business Marketing Association to media, as like a top small and a top boutique agency in the country. iMedia was another one. We won Independent Agency of the Year. So, and we've had opportunity to work with some of the world's greatest brands through that.
So when you get into your capabilities, what do you guys really feel like you have a great specialty in that your clients are calling you back for?
Well, we are really good at helping brands do old things in new ways. For some clients, that's selling innovation. For some clients, that's repositioning their brand to go to market. We do that in various categories, from CPG, banking, and finance. Fintech is a area we've played in. B2B technology and consumer tech are all kind of core verticals that we work in with our clients. And really, again, that common thread is being able to help them either position or sell innovation.
So what I'm wondering is maybe a few actionable steps for our listener in terms of the mind shifts. So, if you could break down both your mind shifts into action, maybe action steps. It seems like you were a small agency thinking, I don't want to say thinking small, but you were thinking one way, but the shift in thinking helped you think even better that could take you to that next level. So what are maybe some action steps that you could kind of narrow down to that our agency listener could take today in terms of that?
Well, if you're a really small agency and you're kind of taking project work as it comes, chances are you're not taking the time to like really get close to consumers. And at the end of the day, they're the gatekeepers to every idea, right? Like it's all about understanding consumers. So even if your research is to go do, 10, like I remember the first time we did research for a client was a LiveScribe about 12 years ago, the Smart Pen. And it was really a turning point where we went from just doing digital project work to, or creative project work, not just digital, but to saying, okay, we need an understanding of the customer to do this. And I went to UC Berkeley with a pocket full of $20 bills. And I just started talking to people, say, I give you $20 for 5 minutes of your time. And we learned a ton, just talking to people. And that became part of how we won business. And then, the creative that we produced, and the experiences that we created for that brand to help them grow their business. So I think, we used to, when we were starting out, just cut strategy out. Client doesn't want to pay for it, and that was the first thing that went.
Mm-hmm.
Strategy is what makes work good, makes work effective.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be a giant thing to do strategy, right? Like you can do it informally and scrappily and still gain enough understanding to come up with great ideas driven by understanding of customers, and use those ideas to use that understanding to sell the ideas to your client.
So would you say that, it sounds like you guys started more as a creative agency. Would you say for maybe the owner that focuses on creative, they need to have this mind shift to take their agency from maybe small to mid-size and working with their larger clients? These larger clients are not only wanting creative, but they're wanting them to include some strategy into it. And instead of them focusing on cool creative, they want to focus on cool creative or marketing solutions but that focus on the business problems. So it sounds like the smaller agencies, maybe they don't focus on solving the business problems as much. But when you can shift to saying this is how our marketing can solve these business problems that you have, then that's what attracts the big accounts more. Is that what you'd say?
Well, I think reputation attracts the bigger account.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Um, what I would say, um, yeah, reputation definitely is a big piece, and for us, like doing thought leadership and the agency press, and like I've written for Ad Age and Ad Week and Fast Company and Forbes CMO report, and that's given a ton of credibility to the agency.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I'm answering the question.
No, that's fine. Well, I mean, I think what you're doing is you're shifting into what actually gets big clients, and maybe I was not on track. So, so from an actionable step there, I mean, even when you're shifting into focusing on working with bigger clients, doing what you're doing, getting into writing articles for these, big, I guess, news companies, anything that would make you very credible to these bigger companies would be helpful. So, and I've seen some of your articles too. So you're providing that thought leadership. So what are some tips on getting on, having them allow you to post or be a contributor to one of those?
I would say have examples, like start writing.
Okay.
Like
to write for your own blog maybe, and then show something.
Blog, and maybe start off with smaller publications, have some success there, and then you can go to a bigger publication and say, hey, I wrote this for these guys, great example of what I wrote. But again, at the end of the day, you need like a sharp pitch. So it's really about understanding what the publication that you want to write for wants to sell. At the end of the day, they want provocative opinions. I think there's a lot of people who try and write and are really just kind of like, going along with the crowd think in terms of
like those typical articles you see all the time.
But they're not really saying anything, right? And to have a distinct take on a trend in the industry or an event in the industry, something that's happened, or is, I think, more difficult to come by, and then deliver that in a provocative way, and that's well written. That's just a talent that you need to have to be able to get published.
Got it. And to wrap that part up, if they were to, would they just go to their see who's some of the guests? I guess the editors at the publisher, and get in touch with via email, or what's a good recommendation to reach out there?
Yeah, I think if you dig around on their websites, there's usually a contributions editor.
Okay.
Someone who manages that.
Got it. Very cool. Hey, simple outreach, but get your stuff right first, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Let's move into some lessons that you learned in your career that could help or some of the agency owners listening. You sent me about 3 of them. I'd love you to highlight those, and then how could our listener build these qualities into their agency or life if it's not really their style or personality?
Well, the first is all about confidence, right? And I don't claim to be the smartest guy in the world, but I know for a fact I'm no smarter today than I was 15 years ago in this business, right? Like 15 years ago, what makes me different is, a little bit more experience, but, because of that experience, I trust my gut more. I believe in my instincts, and I have more confidence that they're correct.
Mm-hmm.
And to some extent in this business, everyone's just buying a point of view. When they hire an agency, or, whether it's consultant, an agency, someone they hire internally, like there's no right answers to how do you do marketing, right? There are only choices. And those choices are backed by some sort of knowledge and, experience, but like having confidence that the way that you have learned to do it through, particularly if you've seen something work in the past, pretty good indicator that it'll work again, So, to me, that's been a big one, is really just kind of trusting in your gut and who you are, and who, when you see, if you think someone on your team is incredibly talented, they probably are. I feel that way about a lot of people on my team. The other is being tenacious. Like, you have to have a thick skin and let things roll up your back, and take a loss as just an opportunity as a win, right? Like, I always tell my team, if you learn from your mistakes, if you learn from your failures, you turn failure into success.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm constantly, and as you go up, you're going to have to make new mistakes. As you succeed, you're going to get elevated into new levels where the competition is stiffer, client expectations are different. And in order to do that, you need to continue to be willing to make mistakes, and make sure you're listening and being self-reflective. But again, be tenacious, because if you just sit around and lick your wounds,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get everywhere. And even the greatest agencies in the world lose a third of their pitches.
So, Adam, I think that's interesting, because what I'm wondering is, how do you recover from the pitches you lost? Not only the pitches from a psychological impact, but the financial impact that you take for investing into doing that.
Well, you try and make smart choices. First of all, like, you can't pitch everything. Like, we have 20 vetting criteria that we leverage, and the client has to like score high on, at least 75% for us to consider an opportunity, something that we want to move forward with. And we'll actually do that multiple times within the process, our own business development process.
Mm-hmm.
Not just that one time go or no go, but sometimes in that first go or no go, there's a bunch of open questions that we make sure we answer, and then we revisit that again. Or sometimes we'll learn something in the process and it'll change our mind, or we'll actually get to another round and they'll be asking for something that they hadn't asked for before, and say, this is a huge investment, let's reconsider this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just being smart about that, and making sure that you're trying to build some efficiencies into the process.
Got it.
We've got it down to a point where we can come up with a really great proposal to, let's say, do a website, one of the things we do often, right? Or a digital marketing program. And come up, we have just like this templated approach where, the team works on it together, but we can have it out the door in a few days and really differentiate ourselves with the thinking that goes into a proposal, but still do it efficiently.
Got it. Yeah, I've and let's move into your third lesson learned here real quick. But I've seen a few agencies that have lost quite a bit of money, just going after the pitch and losing it. So we talked just about preventative maintenance. If you plan things and you think you're getting it right, but then you end up losing the client, you lose a few $1,000, or maybe it's significantly more. I mean, how would you summarize recovering from that part? Is it kind of just taking the hit and just knowing that you took the risk as calculated as possible, and you got to just keep moving to the next, and you tried to budget it in? Or what would you respond to that if you were kind of leading your team and that happened?
I think, again, it comes down to like making sure you're going to get something out of the investment.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the very least, that you are, and having a frank conversation with the client, be like, if we're going to participate in this, we'd really like you to agree ahead of time that you're going to give us complete and transparent feedback so that we can learn and improve if we don't win. right?
Got
Like,
it. Uh-huh.
I think that's a big piece, so that it's never a complete waste, that
Mhm.
ROI, because it helps you improve for the next one. I think having the confidence, the self-confidence to also say this isn't a fit,
Mm. Mhm.
right? Either it's not what we do best, or um, sometimes it's too big for us. Traction just got an RFP for a media client with a $30 million budget. And, um, our focus as an agency is primarily creative, and we do media, but our media sweet spot tends to be between like $2 and $10 million. And to jump up to pitch a $30 million piece of business, we could have potentially won it and then not succeeded, or we could have spent a lot of energy figuring out how to pitch it and then lost, and would have been a real um, you know and it's not just the money, but the energy that you
Oh
deploy
yeah.
in the agency. So I think you just have to make some smart choices and
Yeah.
really think about, do we have a good shot at this?
So your third one is have fun. How do we have fun during the process?
How do you not, man? You can't take yourself too seriously. And um, when I started Traction, we were the funnest agency on earth. We were, rocking and rolling all the time. And I was 30 and we were all still partying, the people who started the business still does. But, we just celebrate our wins, and we make sure we budget in time to um, engage with each other socially, to do a few, those events during the year that kind of get people out from behind their desk and spending time together. And then try and just laugh while we're working. Like, at the end of the day, great creative ideas come from great spirits, right? Like,
Mhm.
people who have positive emotions are better at being creative. They're better at doing whatever job they do, right? So, because we have a lot of developers, we have a lot of strategists, we have media people. So whatever, it's not just creatives. It's really everybody. In my mind, we all contribute to the development of creative in some way, shape, or form. And whether that's distributing it or building it or ideating it or planning for it or executing, that creative. But if you um, have an environment where you value people, right? Like, it really kind of builds upon itself. And for me, as a leadership, as a leader in the agency, I have to be mindful that I'm a driver of that spirit at the agency every day. So um, I try and bring that energy to the fore.
So does your days of action policy tie into any of that, or is that completely
Well,
separate?
that's not so much about fun, but it is about people.
Okay.
Days of Action was an initiative that we created. Traction is a creative agency in San Francisco. So, potentially one of the most liberal institutions in the world, both being creative and being in San Francisco.
Mhm.
But after the election, I kind of looked around and I saw our team's heads were exploding, and we wanted to do something meaningful. And the Women's March was coming up, and a number of employees wanted to take off to participate in the Women's March, but were said that they had to use their vacation pay or their PTO time to participate in that. So we started banging around this idea of, what if we gave people incremental leave to participate in democracy, however they see fit. And we started talking, me and my partners and my HR director, and thinking like, hey, that's an interesting idea. Let's talk about it. Some of the things that came up, our spirit of inclusiveness and fairness, and making sure that the policy was timeless. Making sure, like, I personally am politically liberal. My partners happen to be politically liberal, but we also know that we have a company that employs 50 people, and there's a good chance that there are people all over the political spectrum that work for us. So it had to be something that wasn't just about our point of view, but a greater good that we could accomplish. So we created this policy that allowed people to take 2 days of incremental paid leave per year to participate in democracy however they saw fit. They could attend a protest march like, Women's Day. They could work for a candidate. They could work at a polling station. They could volunteer for a cause that maybe has lost its funding. And we rolled it out. Team loved it. They were super excited. And I wrote a blog post about it on LinkedIn saying, why we're offering paid leave for activism. And that post started to go viral. And within, a couple of days, like, we started getting emails, phone calls, social media posts, people really either thinking what we were doing was amazing, but also a lot of people kind of attacking what we were doing as anti-Trump, as a liberal thing, despite how we executed it. And we're very clear about what we were doing, transparent, and, the reasoning and thinking. People are assuming our intentions were, politically driven. And to the extent where Breitbart wrote about it, and hundreds of thousands of posts, I mean, it was crazy. It was all over. There were scores. We were in, Fox News came in and did a TV segment. Wow. So it became a global news story, and for a couple flashes in the pan, the cycle works. It's like the day it was in the Chronicle and Breitbart, and then the day it was in Fox News, and the day it was in Fast Company. All these things kind of were like, would reignite the storm over and over. And we got trolled pretty hard. People were threatening me, and, which was kind of crazy. And, but at the same time, like, the team took great pride that we were like, you know what, this is happening. We're not going to back down. Like, we're going to be mindful of people's safety and security, but at the same time, like, we think what we're doing is right. And sure enough, like, we saw big companies around, like United Healthcare called me and was like, hey, we read about what you're doing. We're interested in potentially rolling something out like this. Fox News actually told me after they did the spot that they were going to roll out something like this. Dozens of companies contact me, and that's just the ones I knew about. So we were able to take, kind of our own sense of brand purpose and really learn from that and leverage that in some cases to win new business on our own.
So if we could break that down to an actionable step, I mean, for the agency owner, it sounds like two parts. One could be putting those 2 days to participate in politics, or whatever it may be, whatever the passion is, serving, because they already probably do volunteering days, but maybe they don't allow them to take off for that, right? So what could you recommend they do? And then it seems like you could also do your own spin that could get you local notoriety for some type of purpose-driven initiative you have that could help them in their own scenario, not necessarily duplicating what you do, but kind of take what they are inspired on by themselves and kind of replicate what you did, but with their own focus.
Yeah, I think it's important to be transcend, the fray. I think there are brands out there that everyone's thinking about. I want to do purpose marketing. I want to be purpose driven. What should our brand purpose be? And if you have to ask what your brand purpose is, chances are it's going to come across as inauthentic, so I do encourage everyone to, give your employees 2 days of paid leave per year to participate in democracy however they see fit. I think it's a great thing to do. I think democracy works better if it's something we all participate in. In Barack Obama's departure speech, he said, democracy is a participatory institution, not just something that happens to you once every 4 years. And we really took that to heart. But that's meaningful to every American, everyone who lives in a democracy anywhere in the world. So I would say I would encourage people to do that. I think if you're looking to, potentially gain notoriety from something like that, it's got to be something that's innovative and distinct that hasn't been done before. Right? So, we had one other HR policy. We used to have a time off for Burning Man policy. And I wrote a blog post about that went crazy viral, and wound up getting invited to Burning Man headquarters and met Larry Harvey and all that stuff, because they were interested in why we were doing that and what we were doing, and what they could learn from it themselves, which was really cool. And tens of thousands of people read about that, and that was pretty cool. And it's very kind of exciting to be part of something that other people find inspiring. From a business perspective, though, if you want to break through, just like anything, you need an insight, and that means not just an understanding, but a new understanding, kind of something, an observation that you can make that hasn't been leveraged before, like copying what I did or what Traction did.
Yeah, it's already been done.
Yeah. So really,
but what you said, you have confidence, right? So have confidence in this identity that you think is important to either your area or something you stand for, and with whatever it is, and do it and share it and see what happens. So that sounds like so that's a really cool angle. I do know that we got to be wrapping it up, but I want to give you a chance to talk about what partner or deal opportunities you're looking for to drive growth. The primary listeners we have are mid-sized agency owners and other agency owners. So I'd love to hear, what are those partner deal opportunities you're looking for? What can you provide, and then what are you looking for to help you grow?
We are looking really for channel partners, really thinking like a technology company in terms of how we could potentially create relationships that resell our services and expand beyond. So, partners that are looking, whether they're agencies or otherwise, that need great creative work that is driven by understanding of consumers. That's what we do really well. And we also do, we execute, right? So there are some creative agencies that have turned to us for development resources because it happens to be something we're really good at. So really kind of on those two levels of like, how do we build these channel partnerships to accelerate growth and have ongoing relationships, I think is definitely something that we've been exploring and talking to a few companies about.
Awesome. Okay, great. Cool. So Adam, if our listener is interested in getting in touch with you, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Probably if you connect with me on LinkedIn and mention the podcast in your invite request. I'm sure if you're talking to other agency CEOs, they probably get as many random requests that they ignore on LinkedIn. But if someone mentions the podcast, I'll certainly accept that and be happy to make a connection. I'm also on Twitter at Adam Kleinberg. Our website is www.tractionco.com, and I'm Adam at tractionco.com if anyone wants to shoot me an email.
Awesome. Cool, Adam. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up from here. Thanks for coming on to the Build, Buy, Sell Agency podcast. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to our Agency Leaders series on the Build, Buy, Sell Agency Podcast. Please contact our guests from the links in the episode's show notes if you think there is an opportunity to work together. I recommend mentioning you found them through this podcast episode to catch their attention. Now, if you run a mid-sized agency whose bread and butter are mid-market clients, and you are interested in divestment, exploring your exit options, or driving accelerated growth via strategic collaboration with complementary agency partners, then you may be an amazing fit for our agency network, Unite Digital. Please go to unite.digital/apply to schedule a live discovery call with me so I can understand your goals for your agency and yourself, as well as share the vital benefits of operating within our network at Unite Digital to ultimately determine if you could be a fit to join and thrive within our agency network.